Okay, so this is going to be a C6 social studies crash course specifically talking about the family. So basically this is going to be a crash course as I said before, and it's going to mainly surround the family. So basically before we get started, you can just go and look at all of this and obviously look at the recommended social studies textbook. So there's a textbook. We don't remember what name or C6 social studies, but maybe put it down below. And how to get a grade 1 in C6 social studies. That will be down below too. The playlist and all of that stuff. So the plan is very simple. We're going to be talking about the family, the importance of the family, the challenges that the family faces, the role of the family in society, types of families, responsibility of each family member. And we're going to be going through some very important terms so that basically when you're writing your essay or maybe it probably pop up on an MCQ, you know exactly what it means and you know how different factors contribute to the changing roles in society between men and women and what is basically the result of these changing roles. So that is basically the plan. So let's get started. Alright, so first and foremost, when we're doing this, we have to talk about the family, and obviously everybody know what a family is. They can say, "Oh, family, you have a family, all of you have a family." And for this exam or for this syllabus, it's very important that you know the definition. No, technically, technically, if you go down to it, so usually people only consider people who are blood related to be their family according to this syllabus or according to this subject. And yeah, so basically, family is a group of people who are related to each other by blood, marriage, or adoption. Now, you really have some people out there who only consider them blood for be them family. And let's just say if somebody, let's just say maybe you have a sister-in-law or a brother-in-law, you probably say, oh, the man are really my family because they're not related by blood. But technically, once you are related by blood, marriage, or adoption, that person becomes your family. So this is the best definition for you to just memorize, just go in at the exam knowing it, especially on the the essay on the paper two when you have to go right. This would be a good point for sure. Let me say yes, I actually know what the family is as a definition to build up a case and all that stuff. And also it might come by MCQ and I might get a little scenario or something and say Joe and Pam are blah blah blah. Are they a family? And things like that. So at least now you know exactly what a family is by definition. So we're talking about now why is the family important? So basically the family is very important because it provides emotional and financial support and obviously security. Now emotionally people generally or this overall people usually like to be around other people, so that's one. And emotion is a very big part of just how people grow up, especially knowing how to regulate their emotions as they get older, dealing with anger, sadness. So all of these things are learned from the family. Financial support, you know, if parents and other caregivers provide for you security, that sense of feeling safe, and then sense of belonging and identity, basically feeling like no matter what happened you have somewhere to go back to, you know who you are. Even looking at your last name is a sense of identity. Yes, you have a first name, but when you look at your last name you say, yeah, we know exactly where we belong. We know, say, okay, the Williams family or the Smith family, that's my family, that is where I belong, right? And the thing about families is you go through your entire life with these people. So you don't get to choose a family. You're born coming to this world, your cousin, your mother, your grandma. You don't get to choose. You understand? So it gives you that sense of belonging and identity that, listen, this is my crazy family. And another importance of the family is obviously values and moral development. When you grow up, so you know right from wrong, you know what your values are, and when you know what your values are, you're not gonna do certain things, right? So going out into society, we know, so okay, when we walk into somewhere, we say good morning, you understand? So you walk in and you say, oh, I'm supposed to say good morning. Those are the things that you learn from within the home, you understand? Basic manners and basic values that says, okay, if we find the money somewhere, before return it to the person, values such as do not steal, do not lie, them look at something there, you understand? Because nobody not gonna raise them if you come up and be liar and thief. People call up their name already and I said them a liar and thief, right? So those are the values and moral development, knowing what is right from wrong that you learn from within the home. And then obviously, as I said before, guidance is very important. So most of the time, how a child ends up eventually, how them end up as an adult, their childhood played such a big role into it because of their families. So if them grow up in a very hostile environment where everybody shout and just very vulgar and just no love, don't listen, it's going to be poor to go show up in the child when I'm older. When you see them behave that way, it's because of how them grow up, it's because of them family. So this can help you to realize that okay, when you see people, just know say so it's all about them upbringing, how them families stay, because you might see somebody and you might say, oh, actually, I'm gonna leave that next point. But basically, guidance is very important. So when they grow up, they say, oh, I'm not go to drugs, I'm not go to this, or just anything that can harm them, or lying and thief and all them something there. Then leave them something there alone, and then just do the right thing, right? So basically, being a role model, you have a parents, your grandparents, different people that you can look up to. That is how important the family is, because especially in a society, we don't need cruff. We don't need no cruff and no more waste man or waste woman. We don't need time wasters in society. So that is how the family helps to form all of that stuff, right? And then socialization and learning. So the way how you might meet somebody, it says a lot about their family that they grew up in. No, from their family. If I see some people that just really intelligent, yeah, and you say, wait, why them this intelligent? It could be because of their family. So for example, if you see somebody and them speak really, really properly, you say, oh, that means within their family, it was straight English, no patwa, no anything. So your family basically determines how you don't necessarily determine how you're getting up at the end of the day, but it definitely contributes a significant. You understand? So when people get older and you say, oh, they need counseling and all them something there and they need therapy, is because of them family. You understand? So the family can really mess up a person. It can really make or break a person. So socialization, especially from within the family, is super, super, super important. So now we're going to be talking about the different types of families. So basically, we have the first one being the nuclear family, and this is one of the ideal households to raise children in because of the equilibrium or the balance or just the security behind it. And the security behind it, this is about family where you have both parents and their children living together under the same roof. That's a nuclear family. The mother and the father probably married, right? So they don't have to be married, but the best case scenario is that both parents are married and they have kids. But obviously, you have situations where both parents are there, them live with them kids in the same household, but them not married, and that's their choice or whatever. But obviously, they're committed because them live with each other and I take care of them kids, right? So that's why I said that the nuclear family is one of the more ideal households to raise children in, because they have the support from both parents. That's the main point behind the nuclear family and why it's so important. They have the nurturing from the mother, and they have the disciplinarian from the father, and maybe both parents work or maybe only the father work, it don't matter. But the point is that they have both parents playing their role in their life, right? Versus another type of family, which we're gonna mention later on, where you only have one parent to play them role or one caregiver play them role, and The truth is that that will cause a gap, cause a child to feel a gap, and it will affect them later on in life, right? So as we said before, a situation probably common law relationship, meaning that two people must live together, and that goes back to the whole point behind marriage. So different people have different beliefs about marriage. Some people say that marriage is a piece of paper, some people don't need it, some people don't want it, some people don't care. And if two people decide them don't care for it, then that's that. But those who actually care for it, the piece of paper, the marriage, they'll get married and they will have their kids. Now, the next type of family that I think provide a certain level of support would be the extended family. Now, for me, I had the opportunity to grow up part of my life in an extended family, and then the other part in a nuclear family, somewhat, right? Somewhat. And yeah, but basically, my earlier years obviously grew up in an extended family, and being in an extended family, it means that you're living with multiple generations. So it means the grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, different generations living under the same roof, right? So the reason why I think this is so beneficial is because there are different different support systems, right? Because you ever hear the saying that a village raises a child. So having a child in that environment, and yes, let's just say that there's a child, right? And the child live with a mother and him grandmother and him cousin them and him auntie them, and yeah, and maybe brother too. And let's just say that the gap is technically there because the father is not in the child's life, right? But at the same time, because there are so many different people, or even if uncles are living in the same house, right? There are so many people, so many other family members living in the same house that it fills that gap, you understand? So you can be there living under the same roof, and yes, the father is absent, but when you have the support and everything from all the other family members, you don't really feel the gap. Probably the only time the child would feel the gap is when they maybe go out, maybe at school or something, and then somebody bring up and say, "Oh, where your father?" Then they might feel a type of way. But at home, they won't feel the gap because they have their grandparents, probably grandmother, probably five, six, seven cousins, plus auntie, uncle, everybody are live together, so they don't have time to be like, "Oh, we not no father," and yeah. So this is the another family type that does provide some level of stability in a sense, because it helps to fill the gap a bit when you have a lot of family members that are showering you with love. So yes. So extended family, that's multiple generations, and then nuclear family, both parents and their children. Okay, so now the single parent family. So usually if something goes wrong, let's just say two people meet and they fell in love or something, and they had a child or they had children, and then somebody decided to leave, maybe infidelity, then they got divorced or them to separate, or maybe even one of the persons in the relationship died, then that would leave the other parent being a single parent. Now, some people have the misconception that single parents are only mothers, which that is not the case. Fathers can be single parents too, as in some cases maybe the mother died, or maybe the mother cheated, or maybe the mother just don't. Because technically, if a separation would take place, most people would expect that the child would go with the mother and then just go visit the father. But in some cases, the mother doesn't care for the child as much, and we say, oh, just take the child. And so the father would be the one to take up most of the responsibility for the child and say, okay, in that situation, that father becomes a single father because the mother is absent, or the mother don't want the pitney, mother just have the pitney and just give to the father and say, me done, right? So in some cases that does happen too, but that's what really characterizes a single parent family, and this is not the best family to raise a child in, because obviously the absence of one parent, that means that, for example, if the child lives with their mother, and let's just say the mother is more nurturing, more caring, then the child probably grow up spoiled because they never have no father feel feel like discipline them and say don't do this, don't do that, right? So the child might come out a certain type of way, or become feel entitled, or feel even less than, maybe he or she have self-esteem issues later on in life because they realize, oh, other people have two parents and they only have one parent, right? And that is a gap that that child will probably feel for their entire life, right? And maybe when they grow up they get therapy, or just find a way to deal with it. But that's really what characterizes a single parent family. Then you have the blended family, and basically it's when two families come together, right? So whether the parents are divorced or then widow, or maybe they're not even married or anything like that, but maybe, yeah, let's just say divorced or widowed or whatever, and the two families come together. So you have step parents, step siblings, half siblings. So let's just say, for example, maybe a woman marries somebody who has children, right? So let's just say, for example, a woman, she don't have no picnic, she married to a man who have maybe three children, right? Maybe they married before. Then that becomes a blended family. Or it could be the case where the woman have two kids, the man have two kids, they both get married, and that's a blended family. And the best description of this family is, I would recommend watching the movie Blended with we call it Adam Sandler, with the lady and her two son them, and Adam Sandler in the movie with, oh, his name Jim, I think I Jim name in the movie, but basically he had three girls and she had two boys. And I think that movie explained the blended family really well because it showed the gap where um the mistakes that the mother was making in raising her two boys, because the father never did run much. So it shows that she never did really understand what they were going through, especially because the older one that grew up and some things did happen. And then even with the father, with his teenage daughter and all these stuff start coming and him not understand. And she, yeah, but basically watch the movie. But that movie basically explains the blended family really, really well. So that would basically explain it really, really well. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the childless family, and basically this type of family would be, for example, a couple who maybe they just get married or something and they don't have any kids, right? So that would be a childless family, meaning that the couple does not have any children, right? So that would be a childless family, and this could be due to maybe career, maybe both persons are young, they want to focus on their career, they want to travel, they want to explore, and so they cannot put off the whole child business until maybe later on in life, right? And then we have the grandparent family, where basically this is the family where the children are raised by their grandparents, and usually in situations like this can be a situation where maybe the mother or the father, maybe both of them decides them not to care no pitney and them go about them business, or maybe the parent passed away and the grandmother have to take care of the pitney, or it can be just different reasons, maybe migration, to maybe the parents gone abroad and them send back money and them leave the child with the grandparents for keep, or yeah, different reasons, but basically um different reasons. But just know that the grandparent, whether the grandmother, the grandfather, or both raise the children in this type of family. And then the last type of family we're going to talk about is the sibling family household. And basically this is a household where the older sibling or siblings care for the younger siblings, right? So it means that the sibling play that motherly role, or that sibling play that, or both motherly and fatherly role, because the parents are not there. And this can be due to migration, maybe death, maybe different reasons, or maybe the parents just leave them and decide to them not to care nobody, right? Abandon them, right? So in that family, you gotta have the older sibling, maybe that sibling would have been like maybe maybe 25, and then take care of his or her younger siblings, maybe at like 10 or 6 or 5, younger, much younger. So that's the type of family that a sibling family household would kind of look like, right? So now let's talk about some challenges that the family faces. And before we go through this list, there is one on here that we never mentioned, and basically, whenever we can add it, I feel like we gonna try add it here. Oh no, but it's not right good, but you get the point. We gonna add it above top, but this is what was not on the list. We don't really like right because this thing is not for me at all, the writing. But basically, migration, right? So migration is not on this list, but it's a very important reality, especially in the Caribbean and in Jamaica, because you know that in some families, we don't want to say most, but some families, migration is a big thing, especially to like UK, Canada, US, right? So the parents leave, them go abroad, work money, send back money to take care of the kids, them, right? So migration would be a challenge that families face because it separates the family. The mother they are foreign, the child in Jamaica. You understand? Right? And even though they aren't physically there, they do provide financially. Maybe they talk a lot on the phone or whatever, but that is definitely a challenge that families face, migration. Now, let's get into the other challenges that family might face. Now, infidelity and divorce, both of them kind of go hand in hand, right? And as a matter of fact, most of the things on this list can lead to divorce, literally. If we check number 3, 4, 5, 6, all of these things can lead to divorce and idea. But basically, infidelity is basically cheating by one of the persons in the relationship, and then the other person decide to leave, and that is where the divorce comes in, right? And even if the persons are not married, infidelity can still happen, and the person decide to leave them, right? If they were common law and maybe they found out that the person cheat, they can still leave. That's still infidelity, right? But for those who were married, that would result in a divorce, right? Communication issues can result in a divorce as well, meaning that when one of the persons when one person speaks, the other one don't listens, because that's how a relationship is supposed to work. When one speak, you listen. So it's listen, understand, right? It's supposed to be equal, right? So maybe the woman she should speak and maybe the man not listening, or maybe the man speak and the woman is not listening. So communication issues. Like for example, if they have disagreements, they cannot come to a consensus because they aren't communicating efficiently or effectively. So that can literally result in a divorce, and divorce splits up families. You understand? So it means if a divorce happens and the couple they had kids, they had 2, 3, 4, 5 kids, and when that divorce happens, that puts the child in a bad situation because now mother gonna go live somewhere else, father gonna go live somewhere else, and then the child is going to be left in the middle. Imagine the child used to live in with both mother and father under the same roof. Divorce happens, and now the child has to go back and forth between mother and father, two different homes. And especially if new partners come into the equation where the child said, oh, the mother have somebody new, the father have somebody new, it can be very hard for the child to accept, and that can be a challenge that the family faces. Now, domestic abuse. So basically, violence. Once, maybe in most cases, majority of the cases, where the men should abuse the women physically, like domestic abuse, maybe, or say, oh, they love them or whatever, and then they hit them. Those are the type of things that is definitely a charge. So that's criminal business, but that's a charge, right? So usually, like divorce, they would consider those things like civil or whatever, but domestic abuse, that's definitely a charge that involve the police now, right? Because it's serious. So domestic abuse that can definitely lead to divorce if the person is brave enough to leave, and it does bring police into the mix. No health issues. For example, let's just say that one of the persons or even the child find out that the child have cancer or something like that, how you think the family is supposed to function, knowing that the child have cancer, knowing that this child, their child, is going to die, and there's nothing that they can do about it. They tried all the treatments, them do everything, and there's nothing they can do to save the child. How you think a family is supposed to cope with that? Or what if the cancer was in one of the patients, in one of the parents? How you think the child's supposed to cope with that? How you think the other partner supposed to cope with that, right? And even in some cases, people will divorce or they will leave the person because of health issues, because them say, oh, my finance, you have this, or maybe the person did hide the facts that them have maybe HIV or something, and them say, listen, I find out now, I'm gonna leave. So those are different challenges that family can face, and one of the big ones, and I feel like the financial aspect can lead to all of these things, because you see when money comes into the equation, people act different. That's the honest truth. People behave differently when money comes into the equation. So you can have a family, and let's just say that the both parents under pressure, right? There's no money, right? School fee for pay, book for buy for picnic, uniform for make, lunch money for give them, and it really come down. Now let's just say, for example, the stress start get to the man. The man start abuse the wife, right? And then communication issues, so everything can literally lead from that and lead to a divorce, to separation of the family. Now we have substance abuse where maybe the person are doing drugs, one partner is doing drugs, and it's a big problem because they cannot stop. They're basically addicted, and them take the money. Them, for example, then get money, they take it to buy weed, and for example, them get the mortgage money, and take the mortgage money, buy weed. Them take the light bill money, go buy weed or buy marijuana, nicotine, heroin, morphine, whatever the case might be. Any money them get them take it buy weed. No. And is the fact say them light bill money them take buy weed. Light bill, water bill, picnic school fee where you know you did have and you took it by weed. So that is when the problem really comes into the relationship, because whoever take important money, right, and go spend it on that means that you cannot control yourself, right? There's no discipline, and that usually wrecks the family completely, because whoever take the mortgage money, the rent money, the light bill money, different things, and you just use it for that purpose, and then the family go get hungry now, right? So things like that can really challenge a family. Alcohol abuse. So the person that drink them is a heavy drinker. Them drink and drive. Them just come home drunk, and the drunk kind of always come home drunk. They cannot communicate efficiently. They must always drunk out of it, and I say that's a lot for people to cope with, the other partner in the relationship. If you're really the person that come home drunk, like them I get tired of that. And even the kids, every time they want to talk to them father or their mother, them just drunk, they're not even them in a great mind. So basically, all of those things can challenge a family. Verbal abuse, so shouting, can't even pronounce the word, but basically words that bring down people. Derogatory, we can't even pronounce it right. Derogatory words will bring down other people or bring down like the demeaning words, right? So for example, I was a shout and a yell, good for nothing, and whatever to the child, or good for nothing, you can't do this to the wife or to the husband, you're worthless, you can't do nothing. All of those things will be verbal abuse, physical abuse, maybe physically hitting the kids now, right? Hitting the kids can be another challenge that the family faces, and physically hitting the kids now that would pass the point of just discipline, meaning say if it's discipline you slap them with a hand, or discipline you might use a belt, pan and bam bam, but when it gets to the point where you take up chair, you take up at oil, you take up fire, and you threaten to light people on fire, and that is where it get to the hand. And in a situation like that, anything physical like that, police have to get in. Wow. Okay, so now the role of each family member in the family, and basically these are the traditional roles. And there's a reason why we say that these are the traditional roles, because later on you're going to see exactly why I say these are the traditional roles. So basically these roles are changing, right? So these roles that traditionally we knew it to be this, later on realize it have become other things. Roles are getting mixed up, matched, blended, so there's no defined role anymore. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Right, so traditionally we know the father to be the protector, provider, and the disciplinarian. Protector meaning that the father in the home should technically be that security for the mother, for the kids. Then we know, so okay, the father will protect. If somebody break in and come into the house, the father there to protect them as a protector, right? That's security. Because a child cannot, and it leads back to the whole drinking and drugs and everything. Because if a child every day see them father coming drunk or them just hype on weed or crack or whatever, them not gonna feel that security. So that's the traditional role of the father, to be the protector, provider, most times providing financially, that is what they mean, and disciplinarian meaning that they're the one that keeps the children in check, basically, right? So maybe the mother would be certain things would be passed on to the father and say, okay, discipline them so they know not to do this anymore and different things like that. And then also for the mother, traditionally, especially the role of the mother is one of the um main changing roles that we have now in society, because traditionally we know the mother to be the caregiver, nurturer, stay at home, take care of the kids, give birth, raise them. That's what we traditionally know women to do. But nowadays we see that kind of changed a little bit, right? Now the sister slash brother, right? So sisters slash brothers. So both brothers and sisters, their role is really to set an example for their younger siblings, right? And also to nurture their younger siblings. So most times, children will follow what they see. So for example, the older sister, the older brother is probably maybe 16, 17. They're older, so they set a better example. So if the younger children to them are to lie and so do all of these things that don't necessary, then it will pass on to them because they might see it, they might learn it. No, how about the older sister, the older brother, set a better example, so listen, instead of you do all of that, you can go to school, do your work and whatnot, right? And then you also have the nurturing aspect where, let's just say, if the mother absent, the big sister might step in and also play that caregiver role. I might cook, or I might take care of the kids them, or if them really young, she might bathe them, or the brother might bathe them. So different things like that. So sometimes, especially the older siblings, they will take on the role of the parents if the parents are absent. Maybe them gone for a weekend or whatever the case may be, or maybe sometime they help out. Even if the parents are present, they might do it sometime, right? So that's really the role of the siblings, the older sibling, like the brother and the sister, and then the grandparents. So the traditional role, and obviously we mentioned before that in some cases grandparents end up actually being the main caregiver for the children or the child because of different reasons, maybe death, maybe the parents just decide to them not want to pick me and them leave. They have different reasons, or maybe migration. But the grandparents traditionally, their role is to pass on traditions and values, especially for me when me did younger. When we used to live with my grandmother back then, most of the time, like anytime you go for sit down with her, talk with her, she gonna tell you about the past, she gonna tell you about some things, right? So that is how traditions and values get passed on, because they're like history books, grandparents. So grandparents are like history books. When you sit down and you talk with them, they might tell you them whole life story plus some, right? Plus some. They might tell you a lot of things. Not even just about themselves. Them tell you about everybody with them they know during that time period as well. And then tell you everything about everybody. But basically that's how traditions and values get passed on, right? And you also know your history behind that too. Because some things maybe me just born and me there, I may never knows all these things that happened back then, right? With within our family, within the family, and then my grandma would say, "Oh, so so and so did this, or this is how everything did play out." I may say, "Really? This is so like a movie." But basically, that's the traditional role of parents to pass on traditions and values. So it's not just on the parents alone to instill values into the children. It's up to the grandparents too, because for example, the parents leave in them, or the grandparents and say, "Listen, make them stay with you for the week. Them are gonna teach them. Them are gonna make them learn different values, and said, listen, make sure you have manners, those things, right? So the grandparents do play a role in the whole values and morals, because literally remember this. The grandparents are literally who them have the parents, so the parents have you. So if you look on it like that, it makes sense. So then the roles of the family in society. So basically we can just start with procreation. So that's probably the main role. So reproduction is very important to have the next generation. So that's one of the main roles of the families in society. Then we said socialization. So basically we said before that the way how somebody act when them grow up, it has a lot to do with their families when they were younger, right? So it all depends on the household that they grew up in, because that is how they are socialized. So for example, if you go somewhere you see somebody and it's because of peer bad word, everywhere you go them because of peer bad word, left, right and center, you know the type of family where them come from, because that is how they were socialized. Fear because of bad peer bad word every day, man, you and night, right? So that's how socialization works. So simple manners and the way they talk to people and respecting elders and stuff like that is learned within the home, right? And then you have education. So basically the education aspect, families do have the responsibility of sending their children to school, because it's important to read and write. Literacy is very important. It helps them to become more successful in society, because imagine going around as an adult, or maybe later on in life you can't read, you can't write, it does become challenging, right? So if that happened in the previous generation, it's the family's job now to make sure that the next generation can read and write, so the next generation don't have literacy issues, that they can read, that they can go to college, that they can contribute to society, right? So the families are the foundation, right? So even if we go to college and stuff like that, the family have to be the backing and say push them and say do this, do that, and even to send them to college. So people have to save up money and say, okay, may save up for the college and all them something there, right? So the role of the family is very important in society, because it literally determines how the person are going to turn out. Because as I said before, if somebody come from a family, all they know cause about whatever day, that's all they are gonna expect from that person, right? And if the family don't send the kids to school, or maybe with poverty, different things that affect the family, that is another reason too. So just know that another challenge that the family can face is poverty, right? So just say poverty and the kids not go to school, they never learn, and basically the family is very important in society, right? So it all goes back to that, right? Very important. So now we're going to look at some important terms, right? So basically, it's very important to know these terms. Very, very important. We can match them on MCQ, or even when you write your we call it like your essay. Ensure say you can use the word them the right way at the right time. So you don't want to mix up polyandry and polygyny and patriarchal and matriarchal. You don't want to mix up words like that, you understand? So monogamy, I don't know if we have I guess not, but okay, so we don't have polygamy here, but basically monogamy is basically where the person only has one partner. That is the agreement, understand? But in a polygamous relationship is where one person, they have several partners. So it can be like a triangular square, you understand? So instead of it being a line between two persons, which is in monogamy, there's two persons, right? So there's two persons in a relationship, one partner to the person. In the polygamy, that can be a triangle, a square, rectangle. It can become a lot of different shapes. Hexagon, different, but polygamy meaning that the person have multiple partners, right? Then polyandry, and this one is not common. We not even really know of this happening um in history. We never read about this happening nowhere in the history. It's usually the other way around, meaning polygyny. So anyway, polyandry is basically where the woman would have more than one husband at the same time. And as I said before, me personally never really read in a history and hear anything about no one woman um having multiple husbands at the same time. Never really hear that. Yeah, so basically that's not really common. We never really hear that before, where um that would happen. But in the case of polygyny, where a man would have more than one wife, that one very common in history, especially in the Bible. That happened a lot, where different people have different wives. Them have enough wives and stuff like that. Then basically, patriarchal would be where the men would hold the primary power, so they're seen as like the head of the household in a sense. And then matriarchal would be more like where the women have the primary power, and basically they would be the ones who are like the head of the household, right? So the woman would be the head of the household in the matriarchal situation. Then you'd have patriarchal, and basically, um, patriarchal would kind of be where the father would be the most important figure in the family, right? So it's basically father headed. So if you look on it, P, or if you know Spanish, when they say padre, would that be P, and then madre, M. So it's kind of the same thing. Once you say P, you know that the father is the head. If you say M, you know is the woman is the head, right? So patriarchal, the men make decisions, right? Matriarchal, the women make the decisions. Then patriarchal, where the father is the most important figure in the family. So if we say we have a patriarchal seat, obviously seen in patriarchal societies. So the father is the most important figure. Matrifocal, where the mother is the most important figure. Then matrilineal is basically where ancestry is traced to. So we know that a family have obviously the mother's side and the father's side. So in matrilineal would have where the lineage would be traced through the mother's side of the family. Patrilineal, the lineage would be traced through the father's side of the family, right? And then you have bigamy, which basically bigamy is the act of marrying another person, is marrying somebody while still legally married to another. No, bigamy is can be a crime because if it's not allowed in that country, right? If having more than one marriage, and in most cases it is illegal because we don't know which country would allow that, or maybe somewhere over Europe side, but that yeah illegal to be so basically the second marriage wouldn't, if it's a country that only recognize one marriage, it would only count the first marriage and the second marriage would be void. And then incest, so basically it's where um family members could that be cousin and cousin, sister and brother, mother and daughter, mother and father, no, mother and son, or it could be father and daughter. All of that is incest. So if them engage in any type of sexual relation or anything like that, cousin and cousin, mother and son, father and daughter, or father, or uncle and niece, all of that is incest. Incest, right? Then you have marriage, which basically it's a legal union between two people. It obviously comes with rights, duties, and responsibilities. So now separation is basically it's a formal process where a married couple is apart while remaining legally married, usually due to disagreements or problems, but without dissolving the marriage. So basically this means that they live at different places, and then a divorce would be the final straw where they say, okay, just done the marriage completely, them sign off, and the marriage is literally done with it, right? And then annulment is a legal procedure that declares a marriage to be null and void as though it never happened, usually due to reasons such as fraud and stuff like that. So annulment would be like, for example, people who get married for, um, let's just say, maybe they didn't tell lie or something, or maybe like even forget papers or something for go foreign, different lie, but some big lie to behind it, and it wasn't even a real marriage. Or maybe the place where them go, um, maybe the where them get married and never want real pastor, so the marriage get annulled. It never happened because the pastor never real, or maybe they never have no witness, so them cannot consider it legal, right? And then alimony, usually when when they separate after divorce, and the basically the one who earn more usually have to pay the lower earning, so the one who earn more usually have to take care and pay like alimony to the person who is making less, basically. Alright, so before we talked about the traditional roles, and we're going to be talking about the factors that contribute to the change in roles and responsibilities of men and women, right? So typically, women were nurturers, caregivers, men were providers, protectors, disciplinarians, and yeah, those are the two main things. Now, what we're seeing happening is more women are going to college, so that's definitely it. How the roles are changing. And with more women going to college, more women are in the workforce. So that means that women are moving, they're shifting from the traditional caregivers, nurturers, and stay at home wife or stay at home girlfriend, whatever you want to call it. They're moving from that traditional role. Not saying that they don't do it anymore, but they take on quote unquote the man's role, which was supposed to provide, right? But it doesn't mean that they don't still do the caregiver nurture role, but it's basically like that role has been sidestepped, so like it's there, but it take the back burner, right? So, and what can cause that is really, for example, domestic violence in a home. So, for example, let's just say a woman is married and her partner did abuse her really badly, and she finally get out. So what she do? She get herself together. It force her to go work and go do what she need to do, right? And also, if the woman is being physically, emotionally, or financially abused from a man, she might be forced to be more independent. Like maybe she would have just alright, oh, just stay at home, take care of the picnic them. But what if the man is not providing that security? If he's not providing security, she'll go work. Simple. And the reason most of these examples of me try to say is you can see that the woman is the one that is taking on the man's role. You don't really hear the man, because obviously men cannot have kids, but men too, as I said before, we have single fathers as well, where in some cases men do they stay at home. So the roles can change where men stay at home and the wife go work. And that can be because the woman obviously have higher education, so she will earn more, so she said, oh, me I go work, and then you stay at home with the kids, right? And then another thing that can lead to change in roles is men not seeking higher education as much, meaning that they might be intimidated, or maybe they're just not as interested as women, because given the history that women have obviously been the lower or the underdog to men, and then some men take advantage of the fact that women rely on them financially and also for different things, abuse and different things kind of come into play. So that can force women to now be independent, not needing a man, not want to depend on a man because of what happened in the past, right? So that's that. Yeah. Then economic pressures. So for example, given the rate that society is going at, where everything is expensive. So when you look at light bill, water bill, cable bill, Wi-Fi bill, food, um, maybe student loan, maybe car loan, maybe just buy gas within a car and different things, you realize that one person alone cannot cover the bills. So it's like, okay, the two of them, both persons in a relationship have to get up and go work in that situation. So economic pressures can force both men and women to go out and work. And the next thing too, gender equality, especially given today's world, gender equality is being pushed where all women want to be seen as equal with men, right? And so women take on more male dominated roles, more male dominated professions, and different things like that. And well, it's mainly women who advocate for it still, because men cannot just stay there, right? But men do stay at home and different things as well. So then also another factor that can contribute to this change in roles is not following tradition. So basically traditions are being thrown out the door, and people now focus on tradition and say, oh, women's supposed to do this, man's supposed to do that, and it even all goes back to gender equality, right? And we talk about domestic violence already, or even physical, emotional, financial abuse. That happened from either, yeah, if that happened from in a relationship where the man abused the woman, it might literally force her to become independent, go out and work, and depend on him. Why should we depend on him? And so you realize that women cannot become more masculine, right? And in some cases, not all, right? In some cases, not all. Some men just really just lazy. Them just don't want work. Them just want a sugar, we call it sugar mama or whatever you want to call it. Them just want get money, sit down in the yard. Them just don't want do nothing. Them don't want play no role whatsoever. Them don't want take care of kids. Them just don't want do nothing. Them don't want to say, okay, you go work, we stay at home, cook, clean, wash. No, they just don't want to do anything. So it's not even about exchanging roles and say, okay, the woman go out and work, and alright, we stay at home and wash, cook, and clean and take care of the picking them. No, it's like me just want exist, me just entitled, me just want there. You feel work. If you still come home and come take care of the picking them, if you still come home and wash, cook, and clean. So in some situation that really happen. It's very, very sad, but that does happen. But yeah, so different factors do contribute to these changing roles, and as I said before, we basically list them. But some men do stay at home and them wash them, cook them clean. So basically it's like the roles get switched. The woman go work, she earn more. So she said, okay, we go work, we cover the bills, and you stay at home, make the man stay at home and take care of the kids. So that does happen, right? So all of this thing about it's mainly the women. So I'm not saying that the men don't take on the woman role, but it's not as much, right? So you're a woman and make more effort to take on working and all them something there where it never used to be traditionally. And in some cases slowly men they are staying at home, stay at home fathers and different things like that. That slowly come up as well, right? And now the big thing then, especially because me just mentioned that some men just want exist, them no want stay at home much you can clean, them no want work, them just don't want it in a with a life. And it goes back to this very important term which is called male marginalization, right? So basically this term is very important, right? And basically this is where the men would feel kind of left behind, they feel inferior, they have low self-esteem, them feel like women are just better than them, right? And because of this, them don't even try. Them just say, oh, whatever, make she do what she do, right? And me see this like mentality thing, especially in Jamaica, right? That kind of look at what this mindset where them get. Me not understand where them get it from, but them get it. But basically, this is weird because them say women are push more for education, push more for equality. Women are stay at home as much and do all of them nurturing business. Them fight for them independence. You know, men feel left behind, right? That's the word, left behind. They feel like, oh, women are advanced, women are do better in a school, women are do this, and me just there, right? So it can cause intimidation, low esteem, and let's just say, for example, if a man maybe just graduate high school and then he meet a girl that probably even have our masters, him feel intimidated because like he only graduate high school and this girl or this woman have her own master's degree and go and have her car and everything and you look upon himself and say, but what me have to offer? Nothing. So that's really where male marginalization comes in, right? Where they feel left behind in society, like women are move forward and we just didn't. And this is not all men, but some men do have this mentality. So now what's the result of all these changing roles? So the result of all these changing roles is that women are having less children. Them a focus more upon career. Why them a go? Them spend all of them 20s at work and I do all of that stuff. When usually let's just say a woman met married when she's 21 or even 25 and say, oh, maybe a year after that have kids and stuff like that. No, women are waiting until them 30s to have kids. Like them spend them 20s, I live them life, them work, them go to school, them travel to different things, them not worry about picnic, right? So they're waiting later on in life to have children, what's the another result of this? Stay-at-home fathers. So we say that this is slowly coming up where men are now being comfortable in themselves and say, okay, me still a man, me go stay at home and me go take care of the kids, then wash, cook and clean, do many if you don't, since it's a team effort, basically. So if you want to go work and me stay at home and do this, that's fine, but it's a team effort. And then you also have another result of these changing roles is that the children of these parents are going to have a diversified perspective, meaning that them not go to the world black and white, right? So for example, a child grew up seeing that the father did stay at home and take care of them, home maybe a girl and father come her here, wake her up a morning time, drop her to school, pick her up from school, then I wash, cook and clean, do everything. And she always say her mother work, her mother go work, come in and then it works out, right? So a child growing up in that household, and she's if that child see work out, she goes say, oh, but things don't have to be black and white. Do you understand? So things can have different perspectives. So this child will have a diversified perspective of life. Them not gonna see life as black and white. And a result of this is more younger women are also that are coming up are seeing what the older women are doing and say, but instead of me get married early and become somebody's punching bag because some of these men have issues. In the case where some women get married in the past, them get married young to aggressive people, abuse coming, domestic violence comes in, and the women are say, instead of me just settle. So basically, women are no longer settling, women are no longer pushing for marriage as early. Them not right down. Them more independent. Them have them own things. Kind of past, women used to cling to men, cheating, infidelity, everything. They would have to stay in it, right? But now it's like, okay, women have their own independence. Them have their own money. Them all they can leave, right? So younger women are seeing how older women are and say, you better me wait until we meet the right person instead of just get married just to get married sake and sit down here with bikini and I get treated badly. Them say, oh, instead when me go to college, let me work a little bit, let me wait on the right person. So these are the thoughts that the younger generation coming up seeing the older women do are also thinking about. And then basically it's just the whole woman becoming independent and not depending on man for money or anything, or even to some women are so independent to the point where they just don't see the purpose of a man in their life anymore, and they might just go to the extreme and say, okay, them now wait for no marriage, them now wait for no Mr. Right to come to them life, them literally go just probably get a sperm though if them want, if this woman wants kids, she go to a clinic and just get a sperm donor, have her bitten herself. Like some women are really, really independent as a result of these changing roles. And I feel like this whole changing roles obviously come about because society has changed, and also can also come about because the roles were traditionally woman caregiver, nurturer, man provider, protector. I feel like the roles got um altered when somebody was lacking in their role. So it was when one person start lacking at them role, the other person have to pick up the slack, right? So if the woman was not nurturing, the father have to step in and say, listen, me go take care of my pity them, and the mother gone with her business. Or it can be a situation where the woman realize, this man lazy and sitting here and nothing, so it means that me have to go to work, right? So somebody was lacking in their role, and that is why the roles are being exchanged, mixed up, intertwined, altered, modified, everything, right? So that's basically the result of changing roles and responsibilities of men and women, especially in the Caribbean. Right? So basically, this would be the end of the social studies crash course with everything. Those are the important terms. Oh, we mentioned migration right there, and mainly about the family. So, yep. So basically, that's the crash course.